Tears and honesty. What happens when Jimin and Jungkook meet secretly? Behind the glitter of BTS's big name, there are emotional stories that rarely come to the surface. One of them is about two figures who for years shared the stage, laughter, sweat, and even wounds. Park Jimin and Jungkook. They are not only group mates, but also best friends whose relationships have grown and changed over time. But lately, rumors about the growing distance between them have been heard more and more strongly. The ARMY began to feel something different. And now, word is out that Jimin and Jungkook have been meeting secretly. A meeting that finally opened the veil of silence and left tears and honesty that had been buried. Based on reports from an anonymous source close to them, the meeting took place away from the spotlight. No cameras, no managers, not even the other BTS members knew. Only two hearts yearn for clarity and two souls who have been holding back the emotional turmoil in silence. The meeting took place in the evening in a calm atmosphere in a small space commonly used for personal reflection by members of the military. Jimin came first, sat down silently. Soon, Jungkook followed with slow steps and skeptical eyes. The two sat without saying anything for a few minutes. Only the sound of the wall clock and the vibrating breath mark the time that goes on. And when the voice finally broke, it was not the first words that came but tears. Jimin was the first to cry. Not a loud cry, but a quiet sob that is barely audible if not carefully observed. He covered his face with both hands, as if ashamed of having finally allowed himself to be fragile in the presence of the person he most wanted to avoid all this time. But Jungkook didn't say anything. He only looked at Jimin with eyes that also began to redden. After a long silence, Jimin finally said quietly, "I'm sorry because I moved away." The sentence is simple, but it contains thousands of emotions that have never been expressed. Jungkook sighed, then replied, "I just want to know, why?" And that's where that honesty starts to flow. I end that meeting. Jimin finally admitted the things he had kept meeting. He feels that their relationship is changing, not because Jungkook made a mistake, but because he himself is afraid. Fear of feeling bigger. Fear of loss. Fear of a world that may not accept if everything becomes too open. "I'm afraid if I'm honest, we will be destroyed," Jimin said with a trembling voice. Jungkook, who had only been able to guess Jimin's heart, finally understood. Not out of hate, not out of disappointment, but because the feeling was too deep to make, Jimin chose to stay away as a form of self-protection. Jungkook did not remain silent. He looked at Jimin deeply and said, "If I had known from the beginning, I wouldn't have let you bear it alone." The words instantly made Jimin silent again. The tears deepened, and Jungkook, who had been trying to look strong, was finally unable to hold back his own emotions. They were silent, staring at each other, crying at each other, but for the first time in a very long time, they understood each other too. After a long silence accompanied by honesty and tears, the two finally stood up and hugged. There's no telling what they promised each other that night, but it was clear one thing: the wall between them began to collapse. They chose not to avoid each other anymore. They choose to face all tastes, whatever they may be, with their heads held high. ARMY might not immediately notice their closeness like they used to, but this quiet encounter has become a turning point. A new beginning. Not only for Jimin and Jungkook, but also for the relationship of all BTS members who always emphasize the importance of honesty and true love behind the stage spotlight. Now, when both are seen in a public place, there is a small signal that can only be understood by those who are really paying attention. A warmer look in the eyes, hand movements that no longer hesitate when they are close to each other, and a sincere, albeit small, smile. The ARMY knows that miracles often happen in the quietest of moments, and Jimin and Jungkook's quiet encounter is living proof that crying and honesty can heal even the deepest wounds, because in the end, in this noise-filled world, honest silence speaks much louder. And if they can come back from that wound, then love, in whatever form, still has somewhere to grow. And this story, it's not over yet. This is just the beginning of a new chapter between two hearts that rediscover each other's way home. After a night of tears and words finally spoken, the atmosphere between Jimin and Jungkook began to experience a slow but meaningful shift. No long hugs every day, no sweet words in public, but change is real. It can be felt from the little things. Jimin's way is now no longer looking down when crossing Jungkook. The way Jungkook glanced at Jimin with a calmer gaze, no longer filled with questions. They're rebuilding something that was once cracked. And this time, the foundation is honesty. A few weeks after the secret meeting, BTS held an internal event at the military, a small stage in memory of their journey so far. The moment was filled with nostalgia. When it was Jungkook's turn to perform a cover song, he chose a song that he and Jimin used to sing together when they were trainees. This song, by 2 a.m., his voice was quiet, as if he had no intention of showing his vocal abilities. But more as a form of contemplation, the song sounds like a message that wants to reach just one person, and when a small military camera accidentally captured the moment in the corner of the room, Jimin could be seen wiping his eyes with the edge of his sleeve. He didn't cry hard. It's just remembering. Feel. I'm sorry, maybe, but I'll be honest. Every BTS member knows how deep Jimin and Jungkook's relationship is. They are brothers and sisters, rivals in training, friends in silence, and witnesses to each other's growing identity. No wonder everyone felt the atmosphere change when the two started to talk again, even without words. Taehyung once said in an internal interview, sometimes two people hurt each other not because they hate each other, but because they care too much. The sentence was attributed by many fans as a form of understanding of what happened between Jimin and Jungkook. Some members also began to look relieved. Because like any family, if two parts of the core move away from each other, the other feels the impact. Now the atmosphere is more relaxed. Eating together no longer feels awkward. And small jokes are slowly being heard again, although they are still not as widespread as they used to be. A small climax occurred during an internal awards ceremony session. Jungkook was called to receive an award for his dedication in physical activities, and as he progressed, he paid tribute. But before returning to his seat, he turned toward the back seat, where Jimin was sitting. He just smiled a little, nodded briefly, then sat down. Not many were aware, but Jimin returned the smile, albeit brief and very subtle. But fans who discovered the footage from the internal camera did not stop talking about it on social media. They know from that small look comes a great meaning, mutual forgiveness and acceptance. Jimin and Jungkook's changing relationship isn't just about two individuals. It's about emotional stability in a group that has been together for more than a decade. When the two important parts began to heal, BTS's entire body began to breathe more calmly. For the ARMY, this is good news that gives hope. No matter what happens behind the scenes, as long as they are honest and take care of each other, BTS will remain strong. Because as RM once said in his speech, we don't always have to be perfect, but we have to be honest with our feelings. And that night, when Jimin and Jungkook opened their hearts to each other, that was the purest form of honesty. Everything back to the way it was? Not really. But a true relationship doesn't have to go back to the old way. Sometimes it grows into something new, stronger, more mature, and bolder to face the world. Jimin and Jungkook are rewriting their story. With the ink of tears, with the paper of silence, and with the hand that no longer closes itself, and the world will be waiting, not for scandal or drama, but to see how two wounded hearts are able to heal each other. With one silent meeting that changes everything, because of all the stories BTS has ever written, this is the most human. About loss, about honesty, and about love that lasts even in silence.